The river carried a cold silence that morning. Mist hung low, swallowing the world in a pale gray curtain. For most people, this stretch of riverfront was empty, forgotten. For Ethan Cole, former U.S. Marine, it was routine. He and his German shepherd, Rex, walked it almost every dawn. The crunch of gravel under his boots, the steady rhythm of Rex's paws. Nothing unusual until Rex stopped. His ears snapped up. A growl rumbled deep in his chest. Ethan knew that sound. It wasn't a rabbit or a drifting shadow. This was danger. Easy, buddy, Ethan muttered, his breath steaming in the cold air. He followed Rex's gaze toward the boatyard. Up ahead, rows of rusted hulls, steel skeletons rotting on the shoreline. Then he saw it. 3 shapes, hanging from the old crane that once held ships from the water. Ethan froze. His first thought, training flashbacks, Afghanistan, Kabul, the memory of bodies left in the open as warnings. But this wasn't a war zone. This was home. He ran forward, Rex at his side. The closer he got, the more details snapped into focus. Not shapes. Men, uniforms, police, officers. The bodies swayed slightly in the breeze, ropes tight around their necks, their eyes glassy, skin pale in the gray light. A message left for anyone who dared to look. Ethan's jaw clenched. He scanned the scene, instincts kicking in. Perimeter. First, movement. Tracks in the mud. The faint smell of gasoline. Whoever did this hadn't been gone long. Stay alert, Rex. And then a sound. A cough. Weak, ragged. One of them was still alive. Ethan bolted forward, knife in hand. He slashed at the rope holding the man in the center. The officer crumpled to the ground, choking, fingers clawing at the dirt. Hang on. You're okay, Ethan said, dropping to one knee. He tilted the man's head back, checking his airway. The officer's lips were blue, but there was breath. Shallow, broken, but there. The man's eyes darted open. They were bloodshot, terrified. He tried to speak, but no words came, just a wheeze, a gurgle. Don't talk, Ethan told him. Save your strength. Behind him, Rex barked, sharp, warning. Ethan spun, scanning the fog. A shadow moved between the skeletal frames of old boats. A figure, watching. Show yourself, Ethan barked, hand reaching for the pistol holstered at his side. Silence. Just a groan of steel as the crane swayed in the wind. The shadow vanished. Whoever it was didn't want to fight. Not yet. Ethan looked back at the 2 remaining bodies, still hanging. Their necks were broken. No saving them. He swallowed hard, anger boiling in his chest. This wasn't just murder. This was a statement. The surviving officer clutched Ethan's sleeve with a trembling hand. His lips moved. Ethan leaned close. Boatyard. The words scraped out, faint as a whisper. Secret, don't trust. He convulsed, coughing blood. Stay with me, Ethan urged. Stay awake. But the man's grip loosened. His hand fell away. He went still. Ethan lowered his head, his breath heavy in the morning chill. Whoever these men were, whatever secret they'd stumbled on, it had been worth killing for. Rex winced softly, pressing his head against Ethan's shoulder. Ethan gave him a quick pat. I know, boy, I know. He stood, scanning the gray expanse of the riverfront. Whoever had done this wanted it seen, wanted it remembered. 3 cops, hung like scarecrows, and only one message carved into the rusted steel of the crane, scratched deep with a blade. Silence is loyalty. Ethan stared at the words, his gut twisted. He'd seen this tactic before, in places where warlords ruled, with fear. But this wasn't Iraq. This was America. He knew one thing for sure. This wasn't random. This was organized, calculated, and someone, somewhere, had just declared war. Ethan clipped Rex's leash, tugged him close. Come on, partner. We're not walking away from this. The fog thickened, swallowing the bodies behind him. But Ethan didn't need to look back. The image was burned into his mind forever. He had stumbled onto something bigger than himself, something that wanted to stay buried. And whether he liked it or not, he was already part of it. The sun never broke through that day. By evening, the fog still clung to the riverfront like a wound that wouldn't close. Ethan couldn't shake the image of those bodiless 3 cops hanging in the cold, one of them gasping his last breath in Ethan's arms, and that carved message, silence is loyalty. But not all of them had been dead. Ethan remembered the faint pulse, the blood bubbling at the corner of one man's lips. James Miller. Rex had pulled Ethan's sleeve, as if urging him not to leave the man behind. So Ethan had dragged Miller out of the shadows, bundled him into his truck, and headed straight for the station. Now, inside the downtown precinct, pale fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The place felt wrong. Too quiet. No chatter. No hustle. Just officers avoiding eye contact, their faces tight. Ethan carried Miller's half-conscious body toward the front desk. Blood soaked through the man's uniform. "I need help," Ethan said sharply. "This officer is still alive." The desk sergeant looked up, startled for a second. His face betrayed something: fear, not urgency. "We'll take it from here." Before Ethan could argue, a younger officer appeared. Tall, lean, clean-cut. Badge read Clark Davis. "I've got him," Clark said quickly. He gestured to two medics waiting down the hall. Together, they moved Miller onto a stretcher. Ethan followed, Rex close at his side. His instinct screamed, "Don't let them take him alone." Clark turned, lowering his voice. "You should stay back. He's critical." Ethan's jaw tightened. "He was trying to tell me something before he passed out. Something about Hayes." At that name, Clark froze. Just a flicker. But Ethan saw it. The tightening of the jaw. The flash in the eyes. Fear mixed with something else gnawed. Once Miller was wheeled out of sight, Clark pulled Ethan into a side office. He shut the door behind them. "Look," Clark whispered, his tone urgent. "You need to be careful. Talking too loud about what you saw. That won't end well." Ethan's eyes narrowed. 3 men were murdered. One of them's fighting for his life right now. And you're telling me to keep quiet. Clark leaned in. "I'm saying you don't know who you can trust in this department. That warning out there's silence is loyalty. It wasn't just for them. It's for anyone who opens their mouth." Rex gave a low growl, as if agreeing. Ethan studied Clark. Was this guy dirty, or one of the few trying to fight the current? He couldn't tell yet, but he knew one thing. When someone tells you not to ask questions, that's exactly when you start asking. He clipped Rex's leash and moved toward the door. "Thanks for the advice, Officer Davis, but I don't walk away from warnings." Clark exhaled, frustrated. "Then at least watch your back." As Ethan pushed into the hallway, every eye in the station seemed to track him. Some with suspicion, some with fear, none with trust. Outside, the night was colder than the river fog. Ethan tightened his jacket and glanced at Rex. "Looks like we just made some new friends," he muttered. Rex's ears perked at the sound of footsteps in the alley, too deliberate to be casual. Ethan turned his head just enough to catch a shadow slip into the darkness. Someone was watching, following. The warning wasn't just cobbed into steel. It was alive, moving, waiting. And Ethan knew the storm was only beginning. The next morning, Ethan woke with the same image replaying in his mind: the crane, the ropes, and that last broken whisper, "Boatyard, don't trust." He knew he couldn't let it go. If the cops weren't talking, he'd have to find answers somewhere else. And there was one name he remembered hearing years ago. A man who used to wear the same badge as those hanging in the fog, James Miller. James had been a detective, good at his job, until he wasn't. Word was he'd cut deals, turned blind eyes. Maybe worse, he'd disappeared after an internal scandal, living like a ghost on the edges of the city. But Ethan also knew men like James don't just vanish. They hide because they're afraid of something bigger. By mid, Ethan and Rex were moving through a forgotten industrial block, past warehouses with broken windows and rusted fences, the kind of place where the city pretended nothing existed. Rex padded ahead, nose to the ground, ears sharp. He stopped near a boarded-up doorway, growling low. Ethan tried the handle, unlocked. Inside, the air was thick with dust and old cigarette smoke. A single lamp buzzed on a crooked table, and in the shadows, James Millop. He looked worse than the rumors: gaunt face, bloodshot eyes, an old bandage wrapped sloppy around his shoulder. A pistol sat within arm's reach, but his hand shook too much to hold it steady. "Cole," James ranted. "I figured it'd be you, sooner or later." Ethan didn't bother asking how he knew his name. Men like James kept tabs on anyone who might matter. "I need to know what's happening," Ethan said. His voice was calm but firm. 3 cops are dead. Someone's sending a message, and I don't buy that it ends there." James let out a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. He wiped blood from his lip with the back of his hand. "You think those 3 were the first? They were just the ones who got caught in the wrong place at the wrong time." His voice dropped lower. "This city's been bleeding for years. Drugs, guns, money, all flowing through that boatyard." Ethan leaned closer. "Who's running it?" James looked away, eyes darting like he was fighting with himself. Finally, he whispered, "Men higher than you'd ever think. Not just gangs, not just outsiders. Badges with power." Rex growled again, pacing the room. Ethan felt it too, at the sense they weren't alone. "Why tell me?" Ethan asked. "Why not just keep hiding?" James' jaw tightened. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flash drive, setting it on the table with a trembling hand. "Because I'm tired of running," he said. "That drive, it's records, shipments, names. I was supposed to burn it, but I couldn't. Ethan stared at the drive, proof. Something real. But before he could reach for it, James doubled over in pain, clutching his side. The bandage at his shoulder was soaked red. "Who did this to you?" Ethan demanded. James forced a grim smile. "Same people you're chasing. Only difference is they already know where you live." The words hit harder than a bullet. Ethan felt the chill crawl up his spine. Rex barked sharply, spinning toward the doorway. Footsteps, heavy, closing in. Ethan scooped up the flash drive, pocketing it fast. He grabbed James by the arm, but the man pushed him away. "Go," James hissed. "You can't carry both me and the truth out of here. You want to save anyone, save yourself first." The door burst open, shadows filled the hallway. Ethan raised his weapon, Rex snarling at his side. The fight was coming, and now he wasn't just chasing ghosts, he was carrying one. Gunfire ripped through the silence. Ethan dropped low, dragging Rex behind a stack of rotting crates. Bullets tore splinters from the wood, dust raining down in his eyes. The attackers weren't amateurs. Their shots were tight, controlled. Whoever wanted James dead had sent trained killers. Ethan fired back, short bursts, buying time. Rex lunged forward, snapping at the nearest man's leg, dragging him down hard. The scream was cut off by Ethan's follow-up shot. But there were more coming, too many. James staggered toward the back door, blood dripping down his arm. "There's a service tunnel," he gasped. "Leads to the boatyard. Take it before they burn this place down." Ethan didn't hesitate. He shoved open the hidden hatch James pointed to and helped him down the narrow ladder. Rex slipped in first, his paws echoing against the metal. The tunnel smelled of rust and river water. Every step felt like walking deeper into the city's veins. By the time they emerged, night had settled over the docks. Fog rolled in heavy, swallowing the broken silhouettes of boats abandoned along the shoreline. James leaned against a post, coughing hard, leaving streaks of blood on the wood. "This is where it starts," he whispered. "Everything flows through here, drugs, guns, even people. The city thinks these ships are scrap. Truth is, they're hiding cargo no one's supposed to see." Ethan scanned the shadows. He could feel the trap tightening. Rex stiffened, ears pinned back. A low growl rumbled from his chest. That's when Ethan saw dock stains smeared across the dock, leading from a gutted trawler toward the warehouse. Fresh blood. He followed the trail, gun ready. Rex clus. The door to the warehouse groaned open under his hand. Inside, the air was thick with the metallic stench of blood and oil. Chains dangled from the ceiling, swaying gently, and on the floor drag marks. A struggle. James limped in behind him, voice shaking. "They don't just kill here. They send messages. Bodies go missing. Families never get answers." The sound of boots echoed overhead. A shadow moved along the catwalk, carrying a rifle. Another one followed. They weren't alone. Ethan signaled Rex with a sharp gesture. Dog bolted into the darkness, weaving between rusted barrels, forcing the gunman to break formation. The firefight lit up the warehouse. Sparks burst from steel. Bullets ricocheted. Blasts shattered. Ethan rolled behind a beam, returning fire with precise shots. One gunman dropped from the catwalk, landing hard, weapon clattering away. James tried to lift his pistol, but his hands shook too badly. "Damn it," he cursed. "I should have finished this years ago." Ethan glanced at him, voice steady. "Then help me finish it now. Who's behind all this?" James locked eyes with him, finally spitting it out. "Roland Hayes, ex-captain. He built this empire from the inside out. Every badge that looked the other way, his doing. Every body dumped in the river, his orders." The name hit Ethan like a hammer. Hayes, a man he once trusted. Before Ethan could respond, a Molotov crashed through a window, flames erupting across the floor. Heat surged, smoke filling the air. The attackers weren't trying to win, they were trying to erase everything. Evidence, witnesses, all of it. Ethan grabbed James by the collar, hauling him toward the exit. "Move." Rex started ahead, barking furiously, finding the way out through the smoke. They burst onto the dock as the warehouse behind them roared with fire, orange light reflecting off the black river. James collapsed against a piling, coughing blood. He shoved the flash drive deeper into Ethan's hand. "Don't let him bury this Hayes. He won't stop until the city belongs to him." Ethan knelt beside him, feeling the weight of the drive like a brand against his skin. For the first time in years, he wasn't just fighting to survive. He was standing at the edge of something. Bigger, something that would either save the city or bury it in blood, and the first move had just been made. The warehouse burned like a funeral pyre. Flames licked the steel beams, groaning as if the building itself was screaming. Ethan kept James upright as long as he could, dragging him to the far edge of the dock. Rex circled them, barking at the roar of the fire, eyes wild with urgency. But James was slipping fast. His skin had gone pale, his breath shallow. Inside, on the second floor, he coughed, words breaking apart. Files, proof, names. His voice trailed off. Ethan tightened his grip on the dying man's shoulder. "Stay with me, James." But James didn't answer. His chest stilled. A long second. Ethan just knelt there. Another soldier lost. Another man silenced by the same system that was supposed to protect him. Rex nudged James's boot, Windlow, then turned his gaze back to Ethan as if asking what came next. Ethan looked at the inferno swallowing the warehouse. The flames were erasing everything. Blood. Blood is evidence. But James's last words stuck. Second floor. Proof. He couldn't just walk away. "Stay close," Ethan said. Rex barked once. Sharp. They plunged back toward the heat. The air seared Ethan's throat, smoke clawing at his lungs. Beams groaned overhead, fire raining sparks like molten rain. He found the staircase half collapsed, burning hot to the touch. Rex scrambled ahead, weaving through the smoke, guiding Ethan upward. On the second floor, most of the offices were already engulfed, but one metal cabinet, fire-scorched and half-melted, had tipped open. Papers fluttered like burning leaves, carried on the updraft. Ethan tore the drawer free, coughing through the smoke. Most of the files were gone, nothing but ash, but jammed deep inside, protected by a warped folder, was a single envelope, half-burned, but intact enough. He stuffed it under his jacket just as the floor buckled. The office caved, flames exploding around him. Ethan dove through a shattered window, landing hard on the dock below. Rex hit the ground beside him, rolling, then bounding to his feet. Behind them, the building collapsed in a roar of fire and steel, sparks blasting into the night sky like artillery. Ethan lay on the dock, chest heaving, clutching the envelope against him. When he finally pulled it out, the letters were blackened, edges crisp, but the name stamped across the top was still visible. Roland Hayes. Inside, through the smoke-stained pages, Ethan caught glimpses of transaction logs, shipping routes, coded payments, tied to police accounts. Hayes wasn't just involved, he was running the show. Rex pressed close, ears twitching, at sirens in the distance. Police, fire trucks, too late to save anything but ashes. Ethan slid the papers back into his jacket. He didn't trust the sirens coming his way. Not yet. He whistled low to Rex. The dog fell in at his side, obedient and alert. As they melted into the shadows of the dockyard, Ethan whispered under his breath, more to himself than to Rex. "All right, Hayes. Now it's personal." The fire had taken James, but it hadn't erased the truth. If anything, it had made it clearer. And Ethan wasn't going to stop until the whole city saw it. The river never slept, even at midnight. The current moved like a dark vein through the city, carrying secrets no one wanted to face. Ethan stood at the same riverfront where it had all started, 3 cops hanging as a warning. Now the place felt even heavier, as if the fog itself remembered. Rex patted at his side, nose low, ears flicking. The dog sensed it too. They weren't alone. Ethan scanned the shadows between the pilings. The water slapped quietly against the wood, but another sound cut through boots on gravel. Faint, measured. Someone was watching. He dropped low behind a rusted bollard, rifle steady, eyes narrowing. Years of combat had trained him to read silence, and this silence was loud. "Come on out," Ethan called. His voice echoed across the river. "You're not as invisible as you think." A figure stepped into the dim glow of a broken street lamp, trench coat, hat low, a cigarette glowing like a red eye. The man didn't speak. He just tossed something across the ground, a folded scrap of paper, and disappeared back into the fog before Ethan could get a clean shot. Rex barked, tense, ready to chase. Ethan held him back. He picked up the note, smoke-stained, written in quick, sharp strokes. "You're looking in the wrong place. The river doesn't just hide bodies, it hides men like Hayes." Ethan froze. The name again, not in his head this time, not whispered from a dying man. Someone else knew. Someone wanted him to keep digging. But was it bait? Rex Windlow? Restless, Ethan tucked the note into his pocket. The fog thickened, curling around the docks like a noose. For a moment, Ethan swore he saw another figure in the mist, broad shoulders, military stance, eyes cold as the river. Hayes. But when Ethan blinked, the vision was gone, just fog and silence. Still, the chill on the back of his neck didn't fade. Hayes wasn't just a name in burned files anymore. He was a shadow on the river, alive, watching, waiting. Ethan exhaled slowly. "He wants me to chase him." Rex. The German shepherd pressed close, eyes locked on the mist as if he saw the same phantom. Ethan clipped Rex's leash and turned away from the river. "Fine, we'll play his game, but we won't play by his rules." As they moved back toward the city, Ethan knew one thing with certainty. Hayes had just stepped out of rumor and into reality, and the war between them had officially begun. The city looked different at night, not just dark or colder. Every alley seemed to breathe, every broken light buzzing like a warning. Ethan knew the real city didn't live in daylight. It lived down here, in shadows, where men like Hayes built empires brick by brick. Ethan moved through the back streets with Rex at his side. The envelope he'd pulled from the fire had given him more than a name. It had given him routes, drop points, meeting spots disguised as abandoned businesses, and one of them was just 2 blocks from the river. The place looked like a junkyard, rusted cars stacked like tombstones, a shack with boards nailed across the windows, but the low thrum of generators inside told a different story. Rex's ears twitched. He growled low, then crouched. Ethan peeked through a crack in the boards. Inside, men moved like clockwork, armed, focused. They weren't street thugs. They were trained, military precision. And on the table in the center, cases of rifles, boxes of pills, envelopes of cash. It wasn't just smuggling. It was everything. Drugs, guns, blood money. Hayes had built a network that stretched from the docks to the precinct. Ethan's chest tightened. He'd seen setups like this overseas, but never on American soil. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a tiny recorder, old, scratched, but reliable. He clicked it on, capturing the sound inside. That's when he heard a voice, shop, commanding, move the next shipment before dawn. Hayes doesn't want delays. There it was, the confirmation. Hayes wasn't a ghost. He was giving orders. Right here, right now. But before Ethan could back away, Rex let out a warning bark. A guard had slipped out of the side door, cigarette glowing in the dark. His eyes landed right on them. Hey, the man barked, reaching for his weapon. Ethan tackled him hard, slamming him into the dirt. Rex lunged, teeth flashing, pinning the man's arm before he could fire. The struggle was quick, brutal. Ethan knocked him cold with the butt of his pistol, dragged him into the shadows, but the noise had stirred the others. Voices rose inside. Boots pounded toward the door. Ethan clipped Rex's collar, whispering, "We move, now." They sprinted across the junkyard, weaving through rusted hulks as shouts and gunfire erupted behind them. Bullets sparked against steel, ricocheting into the night. Ethan dove behind an overturned truck, firing back just enough to slow them down. Rex darted between cover, barking, sharp and fierce, throwing the shooters off balance. By the time they reached the far fence, Ethan was bleeding from a graze on his arm. But alive, he boosted Rex over, vaulted after him, and hit the ground running. The night swallowed them whole, breathing hard. Ethan ducked into an alley 2 blocks away. He pressed the recorder to his ear. The voice was faint but clear. Move the next shipment before dawn. Hayes doesn't want delays. Ethan shut it off, jaw tight. This wasn't just a crime scene anymore. This was a war room. He looked down at Rex, who sat panting, ears still alert. "We just touched the edge of his web," Ethan said, "and if we're not careful, he's going to know exactly who pulled the first thread." Rex gave a low, steady growl as if he already knew. The city slept, but Ethan didn't. He leaned against the cold brick of an alley wall, pressing gauze to the fresh wound on his arm. Rex lay nearby, ears twitching at every sound. The recorder sat in Ethan's pocket like a ticking bomb. He'd caught Hayes' name on tape, proof, but not enough to break a man that powerful. He needed someone inside, someone with reach. That's when he heard it, footsteps, hesitant, cautious. Ethan's hand went straight to his pistol. Rex growled, "Ready, easy," a voice whispered, "It's me." Officer Clark Davis stepped out of the shadows. No uniform this time, just plain clothes, his badge hanging on a chain around his neck. His face was drawn tight, eyes darting. "You shouldn't be here," Ethan said coldly. Clark raised his hand slightly. "Neither should you, but we both are, which means we're after the same ghost." Ethan studied him, unmoving. "Or you're here to clean up Hayes' mess." Clark swallowed hard. "If I were working for Hayes, you wouldn't still be breathing." The silence stretched. Rex snarled low,
staring at Clark like he could smell the truth or the lie. Finally, Clark exhaled. "Look, I don't have much time. You need to understand something. Hayes isn't just another dirty cop. He built this department from the inside. Promotions, transfers, budgets, he owns them. You think you've got proof? I promise you it'll vanish the second it touches official hands." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "So, why are you telling me this now?" Clark hesitated, then pulled something from his jacket, a flash drive, the same kind James had pressed into Ethan's hands before dying. "My brother,"
Talk said quietly. "He was one of the 3 officers hung on that riverfront. Hayes had him killed. Said he knew too much. His voice cracked, but only for a second. I kept quiet because I wanted to live. But after what happened out there, he shook his head. I can't keep carrying this. He pressed the drive into Ethan's palm. It's surveillance, financials, names, the stuff James couldn't smuggle out alone. Ethan turned it over in his hand, eyes hard. Why give this to me? Because Hayes is already watching me, Clark whispered. He knows I'm not loyal, and when he decides I'm a liability, I'll end up in the river, too. Rex Windlow, leaning closer to Ethan's leg, like he was waiting for his handler's decision. Ethan finally spoke. If you're lying, I'll know. Clark nodded. And if I'm telling the truth, Hayes will know soon enough. Either way, my clock's running out. He stepped back into the dark, leaving Ethan with the flash drive burning in his hand. For the first time since this began, Ethan felt something shift. Not trust, not yet. But a crack in Hazel's wall, a fracture that could grow. He clipped Rex's leash and whispered, "Looks like we've got an ally, or a dead man walking." Rex's ears perked at the sound of sirens in the distance. The hunt wasn't slowing down, it was speeding up. And now Ethan wasn't just carrying James's last proof. He was carrying Clark's confession. 2 men already silenced, a third standing on the edge, and Hayes still watching from the dark. The city felt quieter than usual, too quiet. Ethan had been around long enough to know silence wasn't peace, it was bait. He and Rex moved through a half-abandoned district near the docks. The flash drive clock had given him contained more than numbers. It pointed to a supposed safe house, a place where someone loyal to Hayes had flipped and wanted to talk. It smelled wrong from the start. Rex's ears shot up as soon as they turned the corner. His growl rumbled deep, warning. Ethan froze. Scanning the rooftops, shadows shifted, too deliberate to be random. He tightened his grip on the rifle. It's a setup, he muttered. The first shot came fast, snapping concrete inches from his head. Ethan dove behind a crumbling wall. Rex close to his side. Gunfire erupted, echoing off steel and stone. Voices shouted from every angle, professional, coordinated. Hayes hadn't sent street thugs this time. He'd sent a kill team. He peeked over the wall, counted at least 6 moving in formation, too many for a straight fight. He tapped Rex's shoulder, signaling the shepherd darts left, weaving through debris, barking loud to draw fire. Ethan used the distraction to flank right, dropping 2 men with quick, clean shots, but the trap kept tightening. More boots pounded from the alley. Floodlights snapped on, blinding, turning night into day. Ethan cursed under his breath. Hayes wasn't just trying to kill him, he was sending a message. One of the shooters yelled, "Cole, Hayes says this ends tonight." Ethan's blood ran cold. Hayes knew exactly where he was, exactly who he was. Bullets shredded the wall he hid behind. He reloaded, fast, adrenaline sharpening every move. Rex launched at another gunman, dragging him down hard. The man's scream was cut short by the snap of bone. But then Rex yelped. A shot grazed his flank. Ethan's heart stopped. He fired wildly, cutting down the shooter, then scrambled to Rex's side. Blood matted the dog's fur, but his eyes were still fierce, still burning to fight. "You're all right, buddy," Ethan whispered, voice rough. "Stay with me." The fight wasn't over. Not even close. Ethan holed Rex behind cover, rage boiling now. Hayes had made it personal. He wanted Ethan broken. Wanted Rex gone. Through the haze of smoke and gunfire, Ethan spotted something in escape, a storm drain cover half buried in rubble, their only way out. He laid down covering fire, dragging Rex toward it inch by inch. Bullets sparked, ricocheted, but he didn't stop, not now. With one final push, he yanked the drain open, shoved Rex inside, then dropped in after him. Darkness swallowed them as gunfire thundered above. The tunnel stank of sewage and rust, but it was life. Ethan leaned against the wet brick chest, heaving. Hand pressed to Rex's wound. He whispered, almost like a vow, "You're not taking him, Hayes, you're not taking either of us." Above them, the city roared with the sound of helicopters circling, sirens blaring. Hayes's net was tightening, but Ethan had slipped through for now, and with every step deeper into the tunnel, his resolve hardened. Hayes had drawn blood. Next time, Ethan would return the favor. The storm drain carried Ethan and Rex far from the ambush site. By the time he shoved open a rusted grate and pulled himself into an abandoned warehouse, dawn was breaking. Light cut across Rex's fur, revealing the wound on his flank, not fatal, but bad enough. Ethan dropped his pack, tore open the med kit, and went to work. "Easy, boy," he whispered, pressing gauze against the bleeding. Rex whimpered but held still, his eyes locked on Ethan, trusting him completely. Ethan's hands moved fast, pressure, disinfectant, wrap, not perfect, but enough to keep Rex alive. Only after Rex was stable did Ethan turn to the flash drive. He plugged it into a battered laptop pulled from his pack. The screen flickered, files opening one by one. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, contracts, names, and there it was. Roland Hayes. The former police captain had been pulling strings for years. The records tied him directly to shipments through the docks, guns, drugs, people, corruption on a scale Ethan had only suspected. Now staring at him in cold black text, Ethan leaned back, jaw tight. "So it's you, Hayes." A noise snapped his focus. He spun, weapon raised. "Easy," a voice said. "It's me." Clark stepped from the shadows, hands raised. His face was tired, drawn, but his eyes steady. "You should have called," Ethan muttered, lowering the rifle. "I couldn't. They're listening everywhere," Clark said. He glanced at Rex, winced at the blood. "Damn, he took a hit. Yeah, he'll pull through." Clark moved closer, scanning the laptop. "So now you see it. Hayes isn't just corrupt, he is the machine. And he'll burn this city before he lets this out." Ethan studied him. "Why stick your neck out? You could have walked away." Clark's jaw set. "Because I wore the same badge, watching men like him drag it through the dirt. I can't live with that. Not anymore." He slid the flash drive back toward Ethan, sealing his choice. For a moment, Ethan didn't speak. He just watched the younger officer. The weight in his stance, the fear buried under resolve, and something shifted inside him. "For years I trusted no one but Rex. Everyone else was a risk. But Clark, he didn't have to risk his life. He chose to. Maybe trust wasn't dead after all." Ethan finally nodded, pocketing the drive. "Then we finish this." Clark gave a grim smile. Together, across town, in a high-rise overlooking the river, Roland Hayes listened to a shaken report. "Colt, he got away. 2 teams down, the Shepherd too." Silence. Hayes didn't shout. He didn't break the glass of bourbon in his hand. He simply stood, staring at the city. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, cold. "If you can't kill a man and his dog, you're of no use to me." A gunshot cracked over the line. The report ended. Hayes set the phone down, untouched glass still in his hand. He whispered, "Cole wants a war. I'll give him one." Back in the warehouse, Ethan closed the laptop. The files burned into his memory. He looked at Rex resting against his side, then at Clark still here, still standing. "This doesn't end with us hiding," Ethan said. "We take this straight to him." Clark nodded. "Then we hit first." The buried truth was now exposed, and for Ethan, there was no turning back.
Night fell hard on the city. Clouds smothered the moon, leaving the docks in near-total darkness, perfect for a strike. Ethan crouched beside Clark behind a stack of rusted containers. Rex stayed low, muscles tense, eyes locked on the shadows. Ahead, the warehouse they targeted wasn't just storage, it was Hayes' fortress. Men with rifles patrolled the perimeter, radios buzzing with coded chatter. "This is it," Clark whispered. "The hub, his shipments, his servers. If we burn this place, we cripple him." Ethan checked his rifle, the familiar click grounding him. "Then we don't miss." They moved. The first guard dropped silently. Clark's knife pressed to his throat before he could call it in. Ethan signaled Rex, and the Shepherd darted forward, dragging another man into the dark. No sound but a scuffle of boots and a muffled cry. They slipped inside. The warehouse stank of oil and rust, crates stacked to the ceiling, marked with fake shipping logos. Ethan cracked one open, rifles wrapped in plastic. Another held bundles of cash, stacked like bricks. This wasn't storage, it was an empire. Then the alarm tripped, a siren wailed, red lights strobing. Hayes' men swarmed in, boots pounding the catwalks. Gunfire erupted, bullets shredding crates and raining splinters. "Move," Ethan shouted. He and Clark returned fire, taking cover behind a forklift. Sparks rained as rounds slammed into steel. Rex lunged at a gunman who got too close, dragging him down hard. The fight was chaos, muzzles flashing, glass shattering, shouts echoing across metal. On the catwalk above, a man with an automatic pinned them down. Ethan raised his rifle to fire, but a second gunman appeared in the corner of his eye, already aiming at Ethan's exposed side. The shot never came. Clark shoved Ethan hard, the bullet sparking off the forklift where his head had been. In the same motion, Clark dropped to one knee and fired. The gunman fell from the shadows, crashing into a crate below. Ethan caught his breath, eyes cutting to Clark. Clark only gave a quick nod, reloading without a word. It wasn't a favor, it was trust. "Not if we torch it first," Ethan growled. Pulling a satchel charge from his pack, he primed it and hurled it onto a stack of crates. The blast ripped through the warehouse, a fireball rolling across the ceiling. Flames spread fast, devouring wood, cash, weapons. The empire Hayes built was burning, but the men kept coming. From above, the machine gunner still sprayed wild. Ethan gave Rex a sharp hand signal. The Shepherd bolted into the firelight, barking, weaving through debris. The shooter's aim shifted just long enough. Ethan lined up his shot and fired. The man toppled from the railing with a brutal thud. Smoke thickened. Heat pressed in from every side. Clark grabbed Ethan's arm. "We need to move now." They fought their way out, bullets chasing them through the blaze. Rex snarled at shadows, never breaking stride. The three of them burst into the night, coughing, clothes singed, sweat running. Behind them, the warehouse roared, flames tearing through Hayes' empire. Sirens wailed in the distance, too late to save it. For a moment, standing in the glow of the fire, Ethan felt the weight shift. One strike back, one victory, but Hayes wouldn't fold. This wasn't the end, it was the beginning. Clark spat into the dirt, eyes reflecting the blaze. "He'll come harder now." Ethan glanced at Rex, bloodstained but unbroken, then back at Clark. His voice was steady, low, like a vow. "Good, let him."
The fire at the docks had burned all night, but the war wasn't over. Roland Hayes had one place left to run, an abandoned shipyard turned fortress. That's where Ethan, Clark, and Rex were headed. They moved before dawn, slipping through shadows, until the massive steel gates loomed ahead. Armed men patrolled the perimeter, spotlights sweeping rusted hulks and half-built vessels. Clark glanced at Ethan. "You ready for this?" Ethan checked his rifle, then looked at Rex. The shepherd's side was still bandaged, but his stance was steady, eyes sharp. Ethan nodded. "Too far to stop now." They breached. Gunfire erupted instantly, echoing off steel. Ethan dropped two guards before they had time to react. Clark covered the flank. Shots precise, controlled. Rex darted between crates, slamming into a man's knees and tearing him down before he could fire. The shipyard turned into a battlefield, bullets slicing through metal, sparks raining, engines and cranes towering like silent giants over the chaos. Then Hayes appeared, who had stepped onto a catwalk, suit immaculate despite the carnage, pistol gleaming in his hand. His voice carried across the yard. "You think you won, Cole. You burned one warehouse. I have 10 more. Ethan aimed up at him. "Not after tonight." Hayes sneered and signaled. More soldiers poured in, surrounding them. The air thickened with gunfire. Ethan and Clark fought back to back, cutting down wave after wave. Rex lunged, teeth flashing, so in chaos. Finally, Hayes descended, stepping into the open. He leveled his pistol at Clark. "This ends with me. Hand over the drive. And maybe I'll let you crawl away." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You think fear built your empire, but fear built your empire." Hayes's mask cracked. His voice rose raw with bitterness. "You think I started like this? I wore the same badge as Clark once. I bled for this city. I watched it chew men up and spit them out. I stopped playing fair because fair doesn't win. Power does. That's the only truth this city respects." For a heartbeat, silence hung between them. Hayes wasn't just greed. He was what happened when ideals rotted. Ethan's reply was calm, final. "Then we burned that truth with you." The standoff snapped. Hayes fired. Clark dove, bullets sparking against steel. Ethan charged, Rex at his side. Rex leaped first, clamping Hayes' arm. The pistol jerked wide, shot tearing into a crane. Ethan slammed Hayes down, both men grappling. In the dirt, Hayes fought like a cornered animal, fists in fury. "You can't kill me." Hayes fat. "I built this city." Ethan wrenched the gun free, voice cold as steel. "Then I'll rebuild it without you." The last shot echoed. Hayes went still. Silence spread through the yard, broken only by a distant crackle of fire. Ethan stood, chest heaving. Rex pressed against his leg. Clark limped closer, bleeding but alive. "It's done," Clark said. But Ethan's eyes stayed on Hazel's lifeless body. Something about the fight gnawed at him. The way Hayes spoke, as if someone had pushed him down this path. A movement at the gate pulled him back. James Miller appealed, pale but standing, flanked by 2 clean officers. His voice was shaky but clear. "If this city's going to heal, it needs the truth, and I'll be the one to tell it." Ethan felt the weight lift. The flash drive was proof, but Miller's survival gave it a voice. He rested a hand on Rex's head, quiet but firm. "No one left behind. Not this time." The sun broke over the river as they walked out together. Scott, exhausted, but unbroken. Behind them, Hayes' empire smoldered. On the radio, sirens and news chatter already spread word of his fall. But far off, in the smoke and ruin, a black car idled. Inside, a figure watched the shipyard burn, unseen by Ethan or Clark. A quiet voice spoke into a phone. "Hayes is finished. Prepare the next move." The line went dead. Ethan glanced back at the skyline, unease cutting through his exhaustion. He knew the truth. Hayes was gone. But men like him were never alone. "We burned one empire," he thought, "but another waits in the dark, and for now, Rex and I will be ready."